Well, Godfather, I got good news for you and Michael Shacker.
Uh-oh.
Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, will join us in studio today at 5 o'clock. He's still in town, and he wants to come back and hang out with us for an hour and talk some football.
Yes. Are you sure he wants to come in, or are you making him come in?
I know you're trying to joke right now, but you know Brian Noe as well as I do. He only cares about sports. So he's not going to turn down an opportunity to talk about sports, and he's one of the few guys I know that would prefer to talk sports and focus on football than he would to make love. And not too many people I know are like that, but that's Brian Noe. He loves sports more than anything. He's a junkie. He doesn't care about geography, doesn't care about history, but he cares about ball. And he's told me that time and time again.
Yeah, we know his knowledge of current events is not real good.
No.
What if he's heard about that hurricane?
Yeah, he doesn't, he hasn't, and doesn't care. But he knows all about the NFL. So we'll talk ball with Brian Noe coming up at 5 o'clock. He'll be in studio. And then Justin Myers, we got to check in before the big game on Saturday with Justin Myers. He'll join the show at 4:20. He is committed. He will go, and I know he's pumped for the big game coming up on Saturday. So I want to know, I haven't spoken with him about the matchup this week, so I want to know who he thinks is going to win, what he thinks the key matchups, the battle is going to be, what he thinks the atmosphere is going to be like, and I'll ask him up until this point, what has been the biggest game at Autzen Stadium? I still argue that the 2003 Michigan game has been the biggest and best atmosphere, but we'll find out from Justin, who is a self-proclaimed duck honk. He'll join the show at 4:20. And then we'll have Alex Brink, our college football and NFL insider. He'll join the show tomorrow, as will Joe DeLeon, a couple of college football experts with the big weekend coming up. We'll focus in on Oregon and Ohio State some more. But outside of that, there are other big games. Number 4, Penn State will be at USC. Number 1, Texas taking on number 18, Oklahoma. Kansas State and Colorado. Night game on ESPN on Saturday. So there's a lot of great action around the country, which is going to be awesome. And we got to get DeLeon's take on the Jets, too. What a mess they are. Although they did something that we'll get to coming up here in about 20 minutes. They made the change. They changed play callers.
Yes, they did.
I don't know if it's going to help. In fact, I know it's not going to help because of the Jets, and it will somehow blow up in their face. But not a difficult decision if you're taking over the reins of Robert Saleh and you want to make a change. We need to get a new play caller. Aaron, can we please get rid of your buddy or demote him and get someone else in to call plays because he sucks at his job?
I think the real problem might be the real play caller is Aaron Rodgers. That might be the problem. I think he's going to go ahead and call whatever plays he wants to call.
All right. The big game this weekend, of course, 4:30 Saturday at Autzen. It's Oregon and Ohio State. And you're going to have a top 3 battle with Oregon and Ohio State at Autzen, which is terrific. First time that's ever happened at the stadium. And the more people I talk to, and I made this point at the beginning of the week when you and I were talking about this, the weird part about this game for me is that I don't think we know what we have in both teams right now. There's things about Oregon that I like. There's things about Ohio State that I like, but I think both teams have underachieved based on their maximum potential so far this year. And more importantly, based on schedule, neither team has been truly tested. We've seen them struggle at times to maybe do things the way that they want, but the schedule has dictated that both teams are 5-0 because it's been an easy slate. But now the first true test on the schedule, and I'm just glad it worked out this way because we've been eyeing this game now for basically a year.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought that it would wind up like this, a top 5 battle. It could have been 1 versus 2 potentially, but both teams are undefeated on the season and in conference. And that's the type of stage you want with game day on hand. It's going to be a big-time game, but a lot of unknown about both these schools right now based on the way they performed so far this year. Do you feel that? Do you see that like so many do?
No, I was glad to hear that we're having guests on tomorrow because we need help on this one. I don't know what to think. I go more on past performance, and it's Ohio State. They win some big games. They don't beat their rival, but I would say the Ducks aren't their rival. But I don't even know what to think. I know they're both extremely talented teams, and I don't know the impact Hudson's going to have. I don't know the impact that that offensive line that Ohio State has. How big are they going to be? Because the Ducks have a good defensive line. And on the other hand, have they cured their woes on the offensive line? I don't know.
Well, based on their play so far this year, they haven't cured it completely.
Yeah. That's what it looks like.
What I do with Ohio State is I separate out the eras, right? Like, I know that they have a big name, and I know that they have talent. They recruit extremely well. But I separate the Urban Meyer Ohio State from the Ryan Day Ohio State. because I haven't seen Ryan Day win a lot of big football games since he's been the head coach. I've seen him get his ass kicked by Michigan every year because Jim Harbaugh was dominating him, but I haven't seen a lot of else. So I look at Ohio State differently with Ryan Day than I did when they had a legitimate big-time coach in Urban Meyer. I love Chip Kelly as an offensive coordinator, but I've seen him lose some big games too. So I look at both coaching staffs kind of the same. Both have something to prove. Both recruit extremely well in Day and Dan Lanning, and two bright offensive minds in Will Stein and Chip Kelly. So I look at both coaching staffs kind of the same. They have a lot to prove. I think for Dan Lanning, we know he's a great recruiter, great motivator, a great energy, but a young head coach who's still growing in the role. So decision-making between the lines during those 60 minutes that you're playing is something he has to continue to work on. And I think that cost him at times against Kalen DeBoer, maybe Jonathan Smith in the Civil War a couple of years ago. Yeah. But that's okay. You can't be perfect or great at it right from the get-go. It takes some time to grow into that role. So, and I do wonder, I know home field advantage matters, but how much does it matter? You know, like how big of a deal is it?
Yeah, how many points do you attach to it?
The one thing I do like is the Ducks have Dylan Gabriel and the Buckeyes have Will Howard. I think that's an advantage for Oregon. I like better quarterbacks who are more experienced. Will Howard's got experience, but he hasn't played in as many big games or big spots as Dylan Gabriel has. And so if you can keep Chip Kelly from jamming it down your throat with the run game and you put Will Howard in some must-pass situations, I don't believe that he can make the throws to beat them. I don't. Dylan Gabriel has proven that he can throw big-time passes in big moments to beat big-time teams. So I think that's an advantage for Oregon as well. But I don't like what I've seen from the offensive line, the inconsistency there. The penalties have been a problem. I don't know if they can clean that up. The turnovers, which popped up last week, that's been an issue. Dylan Gabriel has been dynamite this year, completing nearly 80% of his passes. He's only thrown 3 picks. I would like to see them use him more in the run game, too. Well, why are they holding back on that? And we're going to find out the answer to the question you've been asking. Are they holding back, and have they been hiding stuff in preparation for this game? I hope so. They need to give Dylan Gabriel more.
Yeah,
Use his legs. He can be a serious weapon, put stress on the defense.
Yeah, I think the same thing about Ohio State, too. They're in a position they could have held things back, too. We might see a power running game out of them that we haven't seen all year. I don't know what they've got 2 really good running backs. I don't know. You could see them at the same time. You know, Chip has done things like that occasionally. I just don't know what to expect from Chip because he is so varied in his approach. You know, he's liable to do anything. You really don't know.
Well, that's what it could be from both teams.
Yeah.
Who knows what they've been saving up for this game.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere is going to be terrific. I love these type of moments and these type of games, and I'm hoping that with the new conference alignment and these type of games in a Big Ten, this is the kind of stuff we want every year. I love talking about this game, the anticipation, the preparation. Like, this is what it's all about. Mm-hmm. We want moments like this, Godfather.
We're going to get them. With that conference, you're going to definitely get them. There's going to be top-ranked teams every year, teams ranked in the top 3, and they're going to be coming in here.
All right, here's what's going on. Around the country, Godfather, I mean, this game is huge. Oregon, Ohio State is the best game that's on the slate. But if you take a look at the top 25, it's just one of many games. Prove-it games. So tomorrow night, we're going to have Utah, number 16 in the country, taking on Arizona State. Both teams sit at 4-1. And Kenny Dillingham, former offensive coordinator for Oregon, has got that program turned around.
Yeah.
So this is a big-time game for them. Cam Rising may play. He may not play. They really are weird. Yeah, they're weird when it comes to the information.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens there. Then on Saturday, you've got some big ones. Number 10, Clemson, who all of a sudden is on fire after the loss to Georgia, one of the best offensive teams in the country. They're number 10. They're playing at Wake Forest. Number 1, Texas is taking on number 18, Oklahoma. That game will kick off at 12:30 on ABC. Obviously, I have big interest in that. I'm from Oklahoma. I love the Sooners, and I hate Texas with all of my heart. Penn State, number 4 in the country, at USC. How are the Trojans going to respond after losing another physical battle against Minnesota last week? And we've seen them get manhandled at the line of scrimmage twice now by Michigan and Minnesota. I want to see what Lincoln Riley's got for this group because Penn State, another physical football team.
Yeah, it's not the team that USC would choose to play this week, I'm sure.
And another good reminder of why we don't overreact after the first week of the regular season. USC beat LSU in that opener down in Vegas. You would have thought they won the national championship.
Yeah.
They're back. They tackle better. They're a more physical brand of football.
Yeah.
Well, what we're seeing over the last few weeks is poor tackling, turnovers, and a young football team making a lot of mistakes.
And LSU wasn't all that good in the first place, right?
No. And look at Oregon now. Everyone freaked out after the opening game against Idaho. They're looking pretty good right now. And we're going to find out more about them in this game against Ohio State. After that, you got Stanford at number 11, Notre Dame. Stanford's one of those teams where they're not one of the best teams in the country, but they're coached really well, and they play well in these big games. So you better be ready to go if you're Notre Dame. Next up on the slate, BYU, number 14 in the country at 5-0, is hosting Arizona. The Cougs were, like the Sun Devils, picked to be near the bottom of the pack in the Big 12. They've been one of the better teams in the country. Coach Satake doing a heck of a job. Number 5, Georgia will take on Mississippi State. You've got number 11, Iowa State at West Virginia, coming off a big win at Oklahoma State. Number 18, Kansas State at Colorado, 7:15 on ESPN. Both teams sit at 4-1, and the winner of this game will have the inside track in the Big 12 title game. Colorado's coming off the big win over Baylor, and then the road win at UCF, where they were double-digit underdogs and got the outright win by blowing them out.
Yeah.
This is a big time moment for Shedeur Sanders, who's rising up in terms of the NFL draft stock. I want to see how they respond to more success. They've had a couple of big wins. How are they going to respond to one of the better teams in the Big 12 coming in Kansas State, who's well coached, they can run the football, and they can get after the quarterback? That's going to be a big-time matchup.
Yes, it is.
And right now, Kansas State favored by 3.5. And there you have it. And if you want a little late-night action at 8 o'clock on CBS Sports Network, Boise State at Hawaii. Genty's probably good to go for 300 yards and 6 touchdowns in the game.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the dilemma. Do I go to Oregon and Ohio State and miss all of the other games, or do I stay home and just watch everything all at the same time?
I know.
Did you get a new digital antenna yet? Or are you going to mount or erect some type of antenna on top of your roof to get more channels? What are you doing?
I got one that works.
Yeah, but you're not getting all the channels.
No, I'm only getting
a fraction.
Like 10%
I
of
know.
what's out there.
That's disappointing
That's
to me.
good enough for me.
You're not a 10%er type of a guy, Godfather.
No, I'm not. But I got it for one reason, to watch the Trailblazer games. I'm going to be able to do that. That's good.
Well, why don't you bring someone out to have mount an antenna on top of your roof?
Because I don't want an antenna on top of my roof.
Why not?
Because it's unsightly. Nobody has an antenna on their roof anymore. Besides, I already got a satellite dish up there. What do I need an antenna for?
To get more of your digital free channels?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you're missing out and you don't even recognize it.
I live too far out in the Tules to get any of those channels.
That's why
anyway.
you need the antenna. You're out in the boonies. And I've been out to Canby. I don't think anyone's going to care out in Canby if you've got an antenna on your roof. It's not going to be an eyesore. I'm just telling you, you got to take full advantage of what you got. Don't settle for 10%,
That
Godfather.
stuff costs money. Have somebody come out and climb up on my roof and put that thing up.
Since when has something cost money stopped you from getting it done?
Since a few months back.
Okay.
Things change, Chad.
All right, we'll come back with more on Oregon and Ohio State. And we'll dive into the Jets, too. Coach Ulbrich, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know how much power he's got. And is it going to help to switch play callers when Aaron Rodgers is the true offensive coordinator?
That was a bit of a flex by a new coach, though, wasn't it? To go off and do that? That had to be cleared all the way up to the ownership, I bet.
I just don't think Ulbrich has that much power. I think he had to run that by Rodgers and the owner. That'd be my guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he has no power. That'd be my guess there. But I could be wrong. That's why we got to talk about it. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Shed. All right, Dwight, you're gloating over there like somehow you're some sort of genius. I
That's
guess
right. I am.
Game Day picked your pick, who I've never heard of before, to be the guest picker at the game.
I think most listeners have heard of Caitlin Olsen. Big TV star. Went to Oregon. She's from Tigard, I think. She's from right around here close.
Well, we're in Tigard, so you're saying she's from here.
Yeah.
I've never heard of her before. What TV shows was she in?
Always Sunny in Philadelphia is one. And I don't know the name of the other one. She had her own show, and now she has her own show again. I think it's called High Anxiety, High Potential, I think it's called, where she's a detective.
Yeah, great. They made the wrong choice because I don't even know who it is. And when you have access to Phil Knight or Joey Harrington or one of the former Oregon greats, you go with her? I don't understand. It really doesn't make any sense to me. But whatever. Why not Phil Knight?
Well, he's done it before. That's one reason. And she's on ABC, her new show. So they cross-promote all the time. It's a Disney thing.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're doing it for their own purposes.
Well, yeah, they usually do, I think, very often.
Well, no, now that you explain that, now that even makes more sense. They're doing it. They don't care about who the best person for the job would be. They're doing it to promote her show. And they can do it because she's got the connection to Oregon. So that makes sense. But seriously, I'd never heard of her before.
Yeah, she's a doc. She went to school there. It's like that guy. What's the guy that's on that? What was that show he was on? Help me, Shacker. The actor that they've chosen before, the guy that comes to all the Duck games. He was on.
He played the father on Modern Family, and he graduated.
A show
from the
I
University.
never watched, Modern Family, but he was on.
Ty
there all the time.
Burrell.
Ty Burrell. Thank you.
Yeah, don't know him.
Yeah, he's pretty well known.
The other Caitlin Olsen show you were looking
So
for
well
was
known
The
that I
Mick.
have no idea who it is.
What was it, Mike?
The Mick was the show you were looking
The
for.
Mick.
Was the show that was really funny. You don't know who she is, Chad, because you only watch Hallmark movies. She's pretty famous, multiple shows, and she shows up in movies.
She was. I think
always
her
comedy.
first movie was Coyote Ugly. I know she was in that one.
That movie sucked. I didn't see that movie. All right, good. So, yeah, Caitlin Olsen. Couldn't care less, and I'm glad that she's there, whatever. I don't care how many times Phil Knight does it. He should be up there as many times as he wants to be up there. But that makes sense. She's ABC, so they're going to promote their brand. But it is a blackout. I'm looking at the jerseys right now. I'm not going to lie. The jerseys look awesome.
They
The
do.
helmets look terrific.
Big time.
And there are a lot of schools doing this now. Arizona State's going to go with the blackout tomorrow night against Utah. And it's weird to me, like black, so many schools do the blackout, and the color has no association to the school whatsoever. But the blackout looks good. Those jerseys are super sharp. They've got the gray lettering with the green trim around the edge of the letters.
Yeah.
And it's got green for the names on the back. Like, that is a good-looking jersey. James is the one who's posing for the pictures they put out. I'm looking at a tweet from Justin Hopkins. That's a good look.
It is.
It's going to look really good on TV. So there you go. Game day is going to be down there. A big atmosphere. Yeah, this is going to be awesome. So I can't really gauge where you're at on this. So it sounds like you were leaning Ohio State, but then after talking to other people, you're kind of leaning back the other way. Like, that's how hard it is to pick.
It is. I'm still picking Ohio State, Chad. But the other thing that's a definite factor is these teams going long distance across country to play road games. That's not working out very well at all.
Yes, especially against the spread. And right now, Ohio State is a 3 to 3.5 point favorite in the game, depending on which book you look at. Yeah, the travel's it's a problem. It's a big time problem because it takes you out of your body clock. It takes you out of your normal rhythm and routine. Now, I would imagine, as the seasons progress and you get more used to how to better handle the trip, how to deal with the time change, that these teams will get used to it and be able to better deal with it. But this is brand new for a lot of these schools.
I heard Ryan Day talking about it, and he's trying to be, this is what he'd say to his team, too. It's only a couple hours further, Well, that's a big couple hours on an airplane, okay? 3-hour flights and 5-hour flights are a lot different. He also said they're going to try and stay on their own time zone.
Well, we've all done it before. When you travel
Yeah.
a couple of time zones over and you're there for a day or two, you don't feel the same. You feel a little bit jacked up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, these are young kids with a lot of energy, and they're
Yeah.
well-trained athletes. But I just think when it comes to football, more than any other sport, this is a routine-oriented business. The players are used to the same meals at the same time, practice at the same time. they have very little deviation in their life. That's why a lot of these guys struggle when they are done with football and they enter into the real world. They're so used to the structure of the day-to-day life playing football that when they don't have it, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So when you jack up that schedule a little bit, it can throw things off, a tad.
Yeah.
And in a big game, all it takes is a tad.
Well,
a
it's
missed
playing
field
out
goal,
that way, Chad.
a turnover.
It's unbelievable how many of those teams, those are some of the biggest upsets, those teams making long trips. It's just doesn't work very well right now. Somebody's going to figure it out at some point.
I do think, Autzen Stadium, you've been there.
Yeah.
You've been to a lot of big stadiums around the country. Like Autzen Stadium I don't care about the size. All I know is that it is one of the loudest environments in college football that I've ever been a part of. And I've been to some pretty good environments. I just don't think a lot of people or teams that are traveling over to the West Coast for the first time that haven't experienced it, they just don't quite get it until they get in the middle of that. The stands are real close to the field. The crowd noise is constant. They never let up. And it can have an impact. When it comes to communication, I think the crowd noise for me, the areas where it matters the most is the communication at the line of scrimmage.
Sure.
And if that's off just a little bit, the receiver runs the wrong route, which leads to an interception, the penalties with the false starts and so forth, like those type of things that can kill drives or a key turnover at some point in the game, like those things matter. But, for a lot of these guys, the experienced players who have played in big games before, they know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So
Chad, I've always thought the loudest ones were the domes. I was like the old Metrodome in Minneapolis was brutal. And the Kingdome. Man, when that thing was packed and people were up and screaming about something, whoa, man, that was loud.
People won't remember this, but I do because I'm old enough. There was a time in the NFL where quarterbacks could pull away from the center.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
And they could look over at the ref and say, hey, I can't hear. I need you to ask the crowd to quiet down.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it happened because I went to multiple games at the Kingdome where it got so flippin' loud in there that Elway would back away from the center and look to the official for help.
Yeah.
And he would come on his loudspeaker in the stadium and ask the crowd to quiet down. And if they didn't cooperate, they'd be penalized.
That's right. That was the penalty. If you didn't quiet down, that was 5 yards.
Yeah, and I've got the game. It's on YouTube. 1989 Broncos at Seahawks. If you watch that game, there's a few points in that game where Elway literally does that. Now, the crowd didn't exactly cooperate with Elway's wishes, but there was a time where you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Kingdome, to me, is louder than Seahawks Stadium because of the
absolutely.
The way the sound would bounce off the wall.
Bounced off all the way. It was cement. Man, that sound stayed inside. It didn't go anywhere.
And the same thing I've noticed down in Arizona with the Cardinals. If you go to a Cardinal home game in that State Farm Stadium, when it's closed and they have the dome closed at the top, it's really flipping loud in there because the way the sound bounces. The Metrodome was known for a place like that. I've been to the old Astrodome, which is just a hideous piece of garbage, but it was loud in there too. Same thing, concrete and noise.
The stadium in Las Vegas, I thought, was loud too. That's pretty loud.
That's a loud stadium. So there you go. So Ducks and Buckeyes, we got a lot more on this, and I'm looking forward to the game, but the Ducks are going to wear the blackout. It's going to be a super sharp game, and, this game's huge. We've been talking about this now for like a year, right? Because this game's on the schedule. People have been 1:30 on NBC. Everyone in the country is going to see it, and it's on at a time where everyone's going to be awake.
Yeah.
You have a chance to really showcase what you can do. That's huge, man. This is why you go to a school like Oregon or Ohio State to play in these type of games.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how thrilling it is for the kids to be able to take part in something like that.
Yeah. I can't imagine when the Ducks come out of that tunnel with a motorcycle leading them, and they really ought to get a Batman motorcycle, something dark like their uniforms to lead them out. It's going to be unbelievable. They look like stormtroopers in those uniforms. That's pretty ferocious.
No, it is. No question about it.
I might give them another point in the point spread in the odds just because of the uniforms. Those could be a little intimidating.
All right, let's shift to the NFL. Brian O going to join us in studio at 5. We'll talk with Justin Myers, who's going to join the show at 4:20. Who do you think he's going to predict will win the game? Is it guaranteed he's going to pick the Ducks, or do you think he'll go opposition theory and go Ohio State?
He's going to pick Ohio State.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Have you heard him talk about that on the show this week?
No, I haven't. No,
Interesting.
I haven't, but I just have that feeling. He likes to be
a contrarian.
Yes. I think he would revel in the idea of being the guy who picked the other team, you know?
What are the odds on him getting in a car wreck on the way down to Autzen this weekend after what happened in Sherwood last week when they picked up 10 pumpkins? Are they taking any pumpkins to the game? They've got plenty of them. Will he set up a pumpkin display at his tailgating? There's so many things to ask Justin about this game.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be any pumpkins.
Okay.
I think there's going to be too much alcohol for him to carry down there without all the pumpkins.
Do you think he'll be drinking on Saturday?
Oh, come on, Chad.
All right, let's shift to the NFL here, Godfather. The Jets, a horrible franchise with a dumb owner and really just complete dysfunction.
Aside from that, they're okay.
Yeah, they have gotten rid of their head coach. Robert Sala's gone, and they promoted Coach Ulbrich, who was running the defense, to be their interim head coach. Good luck with that, buddy. And today, Ulbrich made some changes to the offense. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Regarding the staff, after a lot of time to think about it, and did not make this decision easily by any means, I'm going to make Todd Downing the play caller for the New York Jets going forward. And this is more a byproduct of a different take on things. I'm not saying it's a better or worse take on things by any means, but just a different take on things, a fresh approach. So ultimately, Todd will have the full say on the game plan and ultimately the plays that are called within the game.
All right, Jeff Ulbrich spent his college years at San Jose State. He played for the 49ers for a number of years, from 2000 to 2009. He's been an assistant special teams coordinator for the Hawks. He was on staff linebackers coach, special teams coordinator with UCLA, linebackers coach for the Falcons, assistant head coach and linebackers coach for the Falcons. And now he's been with the Jets since 2021 and now is the interim head coach. All right, so they're making changes with their play calling. That's not a surprise because Nathaniel Hackett is a dum-dum. All right, we've established that. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not the smartest guy on the planet. There's no question about that. But I guess what I want to ask you, Godfather, is with Aaron Rodgers as quarterback, I assume that he has autonomy over the offense. How much of an impact can it have to have Todd Downing go in and call plays? And is that something where he had to get the owner and Aaron Rodgers to sign off before they demoted Hackett? Like, how do you see the way that played out?
Look, he's a new coach. Anything he does of that nature, I'm sure, has to be ratified by those above him, whether it's Joe Douglas or Woody or whoever it is. And then I think if he's a smart guy, he and Downey go to Aaron Rodgers and talk it out with him and say, we don't like what we've been doing. We're going to make some changes. Here's the way we want to go. And I would hope that Downing has, a philosophy in mind that he wants to try something out. And then he sells it to Aaron Rodgers. It's like, let's give this a go and try to get his buy-in before you ever call a play. I think that's the only way it's going to work. Otherwise, if you don't have any connection to him beforehand, you're going to get a lot of rejection.
Nathaniel Hackett owes Aaron Rodgers his firstborn and then some.
Oh, yeah.
Hackett's last 4 years as a play caller. Now, remember, his time in Green Bay, it doesn't really count on his resume because he was not the play caller.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to make sure you understand that. His last 4 years as an NFL play caller, when we say that Nathaniel Hackett's a dum-dum in the NFL, we're not lying. In 2018, fired as the Jags offensive coordinator after 11 games. In 2022, the Broncos, he surrendered play calling duties as head coach after 9 games. And don't forget, 2 games in, they brought in Jerry Rosburg to kind of help him with the job. In 2023, the Jets ranked 31st in total offense. And this year with the Jets, he loses play calling responsibilities after 5 games. And that's what Aaron Rodgers is as quarterback. Good job, moron.
Yeah, sir, can I see your resume? I don't have one right now. Sorry.
He did something that I didn't even think was possible. He actually did a worse job head coaching the Broncos than Josh McDaniels did.
Yeah.
And McDaniels was awful.
Mm-hmm.
But he was worse. That's really bad. But for some reason, Aaron Rodgers loves him and takes care of him. And because of that, he's been given jobs where he makes a heck of a lot of money. He's set up financially for life because of Aaron Rodgers' weird fascination with him.
It would be really interesting. Get Aaron on one of these days, would you, Chad? Because I'd like to ask him about that. What is it about this guy that you like so much?
Next time he's out in Oregon for a darkness retreat, I'll roll down there and talk to him.
Perfect.
But see, this is good. I don't want to believe that Aaron Rodgers, because I asked you about this at the beginning of the week. Like, Aaron Rodgers is great. Like, I really love watching him play. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. There's no question about that. I don't want to live in a world where Aaron Rodgers would prefer to have autonomy over production. That he would prefer to be able to have final say over everything instead of winning football games. I don't believe that that's the case. I would like to think that he can look at the situation and say, look, I love Hackett, but what's happening right now is unacceptable.
Yeah.
My name, I'll be blamed for this, and my
Yeah.
legacy matters to me.
Right.
So hopefully he's willing to work with Downing, and it can be one of those processes where they work together to come up with the best plays and try to implement some new wrinkles. Of course, you can't overhaul the entire playbook when you're in the season, but maybe they can come up with a few wrinkles to help guys get off better, to put Rodgers in a better position to get rid of the football and not take as much punishment, and hopefully the Jets offense will have more success.
But you make a great point. 10 years from now, when people are looking back at Aaron Rodgers' Hall of Fame career, nobody knows who Hackett is by then. It's
Or
like
Downing,
who-
or Ulbrich.
None of those guys. It's all going to be on Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
He's going to have to wear whatever happens, especially this year where he goes to – this isn't exactly Tom Brady going to another team. It's not Manning going to another team where there's big success. And I think he wanted to go to another team where he could show, hey, I can win here too. Well, he's not doing it.
No, it's very rare. What happened with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning going to a different team late in their career and winning a championship, that doesn't happen very often.
No, it sure doesn't.
And for Aaron Rodgers, I believe his legacy matters to him. And so I hope that he's able to work with Downing to try and come up with the best plan moving forward to put that offense in a position to have success. Because here's the reality. They're going to play the Bills. If they win the game, they're tied for first in the division. Their defense is already legitimate.
Yeah.
So they just need to tighten things up. And we're not talking about a team that needs to average 30 points a game. Just get up to around 21 to 24 points a game. And with that defense, they'll be in a position to win the majority of their football games. And if you beat the Bills and you're tied for first, you got a chance to compete in the division. Where it could be a bit of an issue this year, and more than likely it won't because there's so much parity in the NFL, you just want to keep pace with the rest of the teams in the AFC. So if you don't win the division, you're still in line and in a position to get a wild card berth.
Yeah.
So that's all you need. Just tighten it up on offense. And then the defense has already proven that it can get the job done. This is not something that requires a major overhaul. We laugh about the Jets because they're dysfunctional, but this team's not that far off from being a competitive, viable playoff team in the NFL.
Well, and they're not far off in the standings either. We've talked about that. They got a chance to move right into first place. They're not buried yet. I think that was a good reason for making a coaching change. They're not buried. They got Buffalo coming up next week. They win that game. Where are they in the standings if they beat Buffalo?
Well, I just said it. First place.
Yeah.
They'll be tied for first. They host the Bills on Monday Night Football.
Oh, they host them. Okay.
On Monday Night Football. You win that game, you're tied for first.
Yeah. So it's really almost a can't-miss kind of change, really.
Buffalo right now favored by 2.5 in that game. So there you go.
That's another one of those games where you don't really know because of the change in coaches, play callers. You really don't know what's going to happen in that game.
All right. Tonight, we got the 49ers and Seahawks. That's going to be a fantastic game. The Trailblazers are going to be at that one as they get ready to take on the Clippers tomorrow night. 7:30 here in your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Jags and Bears are going to play in London Sunday morning at 6:30. Cards at Packers, Colts at Titans, Texans, Patriots from New England. Bucks are at the Saints. Browns at the Eagles. Ugh. How about this? The Commanders at the Ravens. And the Commanders right now 4-1 and one of the surprise teams in the NFL. And I love this.
Too.
105 on CBS. The former Ducks going to go head-to-head. Bo Nix against Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh against Sean Payton. The Broncos trying to move to 4-2 and win 4 straight games. That's a big game.
Yeah.
And then after they play the Chargers, they get the Saints, who are going to be without Derek Carr, and then I think they play the Panthers. The Broncos have a legitimate chance to be 6-2 going into the near halfway mark of the NFL season.
That would be incredible. Sean Payton would be getting Coach of the Year votes already.
No question. All right, we'll keep things rolling here. We're going to talk with Justin Myers, who will stop by at 4:20. Well, Godfather, one thing you can't complain about is this extended summertime weather we're getting in October.
Pretty nice. Yeah, pretty nice.
It's
I've
fabulous.
actually been out hitting a few golf balls once in a while.
Good.
Yeah, it's nice to get out, still be able to play this time of year.
All right, big game coming up tonight at Lumen Field, Godfather, where the Seahawks looking to take control of the NFC West. The 49ers right now not playing good football at 2-3 and struggling, and Brock Purdy's numbers down pretty sharply from what we saw last year. And I want to play this clip for you. You sent it over to me. It's from Emmanuel Acho on Fox Sports. I think this is more of a spicy hot take, but there might be
Clickbait, maybe?
possibly, but there could be some validity to it. But let's take a listen to what he has to say about Kyle Shanahan, the way he's calling games right now for the 49ers.
The Niners are in trouble so long as Kyle Shanahan does not get out of his own way. In watching the game, it's like Kyle Shanahan is coaching as if his dad is in the stands and he wants to make his dad proud. He's hooping like his ex is in the crowd. And you know when you start dribbling the basketball all hard so you get an echo in a basketball on the hardwood?
That's me.
Kyle Shanahan's calling plays like he wants to show off America. The Cardinals allowed 216 rushing yards to the Commanders. And the week before, they allowed 187 rushing yards to the opponent. I believe it may have been the Detroit Lions. Yet Kyle Shanahan, you start your game with one running play of your first 9 plays. Your first 3 plays, you go 3 and out, pass, pass, pass. Who you showing off for? Who you showing out for? The Cardinals have the 4th worst run defense in the NFL. You have a running back who has the most rushing yards through 5 weeks in franchise history. Yet you don't run the ball in the first 9 plays but once? Who you showing out for? The Niners are in trouble until Shanahan gets out of his own way, because right now, Shanahan is in his own way. He is what's stopping this offense. I'll get to the defense later.
There you go. All right, so the 49ers struggling on offense right now, Godfather. And a couple of things here. I do have experience with the Shanahan offense by being a Bronco fan. But I think what's happening partly is, teams now, and you know how this works with teams and certain players, quarterbacks, the more tape that's on a particular team and a particular player, defensive coordinators make their adjustments and they attack teams differently. So I think the 49ers are looking at things differently now, where teams are putting more pressure on the 49ers to throw the football with Brock Purdy, putting more guys up in the box to contain the run game. They want to force Purdy to try and beat them. So now it's up to Shanahan to come up with his counter move on how he wants to scheme and get his team in place. But what I think one of the bigger issues is, and if you look at the numbers, Brock Purdy's numbers across the board are down this year. He particularly struggles when the team's tied or trailing in games. And we're seeing this with touchdown production. Interceptions are up. Completion percentage is down. The overall game for Brock Purdy's not what it was last year. I saw this with Mike Shanahan with these play-calling scripters, right? When he had Brian Griese at quarterback. Griese was great in the first half when Shanahan would script out the plays and they knew what was coming. But in the second half, when they would work off script and you had to adjust to what was going on in the game and you didn't have those pre-planned plays that you had practiced throughout the course of the week, that's where a guy like Brian Griese really struggled to get the job done. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Shanahan offense right now. The scripted plays, good. First half production, good. But in the second half when they're off script, we're seeing the drop-off there. And Shanahan's going to have to work and find different ways to put his guys in a position to succeed, because aside from Christian McCaffrey, the team's pretty healthy in terms of their playmakers being on the field.
Okay, the one structurally, what he said, you know more about this than I do, but it seems to me if Kyle Shanahan were showing off for his father, he'd be calling running plays, not passing plays. I bet his dad would like to see him run the football. That's kind of what he was always about. Let's run the football. I don't know if he'd start off with 8 out of the first 9 being passes.
Yeah, and the reason why he comes up with a script like that is because of what he thinks the defense is going to do. So he's trying to counter how he thinks the defense is going to attack him.
Yeah, I always heard, like with Walsh, it was always part that and then part setting people up or seeing how they handle certain formations, things like that.
Yeah.
So you could put that information away to use later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for the 49ers, look, coaches are no different than players. Coaches, play callers, they get into slumps too, where they don't have the same feel. They're not calling the game the way they would. They often will overthink themselves, in terms of what to do in certain situations. And so maybe Kyle Shanahan's just in a bit of a slump right now, but he's developing a reputation as a coach that blows big leads, double-digit leads, especially in the second half, and that's not the type of reputation you want. But for the 49ers right now, they're not getting the same type of production up front on their defensive line. They're not doing a good enough job stopping the run. They're giving up bigger plays, and they're not getting the same type of production out of their offense. So they're struggling in multiple areas. It's not just Brock Purdy who's underperforming, but the defense isn't as dominant as we've seen in the past. And, they've really leaned on that defense over the last couple of years because it was so dominant, especially when it came to getting pressure on the quarterback. But now, if those guys don't get home and get pressure on the quarterback, then they've been susceptible to giving up the big plays. And if I'm the Seahawks tonight, based on what I saw last week in that game against the Cardinals, I would put Geno Smith in situations where you encourage him to run the football. Don't be afraid to take off and put stress on their defense because they really struggled trying to contain Kyler Murray last week. And he was able to hurt them with his legs. He picked up some big first downs, had a big touchdown run. And then when you get the defense worried about the quarterback and they start thinking too much, that can open up other potential plays.
Yeah, the only thing about that is Kyler Murray is a much different runner than Geno Smith is. I mean, Kyler Murray he's a handful. That guy is so quick.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. But Geno Smith's a capable runner.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying use him. Don't be afraid to have some design quarterback runs or ways that you can put more stress on their defense. I just know this is a big game for the 49ers. You lose this game and go to 2-4. Not only is the division in question, but making the playoffs and being a wild card team is a big problem. So they've got some work to do. But
they got to figure out how to play without their best running back. I mean, it's as simple as that. He may not be back all season. McCaffrey might be done for the year. I mean, nobody seems to know much about it, and they're not saying a lot. They're kind of just buying time all the time, but a lot more games without him.
Oh, there's no question about that. 49ers are favored by 4 tonight. How do you see that game going? You think the 49ers bounce back and scratch out a win?
I think it's hard for me to imagine somebody being a 4-point favorite at Seattle. They're coming off a home loss, right? I don't know if they're going to lose 2 straight at home. They're a hard team to beat there, traditionally.
Well, there's no question about that. It's a tough place to play. So they beat the Jets in their opener. They lost at the Vikings. They blew a game at the Rams. They beat the Patriots, and they lose to the Cardinals.
Yeah, that Cardinal loss, that's a hard one.
Yeah, so they really haven't done anything this year. That's a big game because they got the Seahawks on the road tonight. And then after that, Chiefs at home, Cowboys at home, at the Bucks, Seahawks at home, at the Packers, at the Bills. The NFL schedule is
that's right.
Unforgiving, Godfather.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here. Rip City Drive. We're going to talk with Justin Myers. He's going to stop by and join us coming up at 4:20. We'll get his take on the game this weekend. And then Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio in studio for the entire 5 o'clock hour. All right, our first Trailblazer game is coming up tomorrow night. Blazers and Clippers from Seattle. Tip-off at 7:30. Game day will be at 5:30, and the Trailblazer pregame show at 6:30. Tip-off at 7:30, and then Sunday, Blazers and Kings will tip off at 3 o'clock as the preseason is underway. And did you send me that note? Was it Shams who made his debut appearance on ESPN, and had some ridiculous report where he announced that after 15 years in the NBA that what's his nuts who used to play for the Spurs, Danny Green, is retiring?
Yeah, it was kind of funny. Wow. He comes on the first take, his first shot there as the new ESPN guy, and he interrupts Stephen A. to say, "Hey, I got a story for you too. Right off the bat, I got something for you." Okay, Stephen A. Smith's getting all hyped up, thinking it has something to do with his New York Knicks, but it was like, yeah, I've been told that Danny Green, 15-year veteran, is retiring. He's announced his retirement. Oh, great. Didn't even know he was still in the league.
So he's giving away as useful information as Woj used to do on ESPN.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be different, though, because he's much more of a transactions guy than Woj was. Huh. And Woj was a writer who occasionally also did big stories. Not a great writer, but a passable journeyman writer. I'm not so sure about Shams. I'm not so sure how that's going to work with him.
Did you talk to Haynes? Did he try and get in the mix on that job to take over for Woj?
I knew that he was in conversation with ESPN before Woj announced his move to St. Bonnie.
Because ESPN probably had a heads up from Woj that he was going to shut it down at some point, right?
Yeah, probably. But that's not Chris's thing. He's not one of those transaction guys that's going to constantly get a 30-second scoop on somebody being released on a G League team.
But if you wanted inside information on Dame or LeBron, then Haynes would be your guy, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that would be true.
If you want special features on Dame and LeBron, then Haynes would be your guy there. All right, so Shams stepping in, taking over Woj at ESPN. Speaking of ESPN personalities, not a surprise here, but very interesting. And the reason why I want to discuss this for a moment, I'm concerned about college athletes with this whole new world of NIL being taken advantage of by unsavory characters who want a piece of their pie, right?
Yeah.
How many guys do you think are approaching these random college athletes around the country trying to get a piece of their money, their NIL cash? It's probably pretty steep, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I hope they're prepared for it because they're getting hit up by all kinds of lowlifes, I'm sure.
I hope these schools or the NCAA, not that I have faith in the NCAA, but they need to have a freshman symposium, just like the NBA and the NFL and these other sports leagues have these rookie symposiums to help better prepare them for what they're going to be dealing with when it comes to NIL money.
Yeah. They better bring a tax guy in, too, to explain
taxes, saving, how to better protect yourself,
good
how to focus on the
investments.
future, investments. They need to have all these little elements in place for the athletes so they don't get screwed.
And don't you think like a full-time financial counselor of some sort that's there for them? That would be a great move.
Well, I think I've told you before, working with Lo Neal, when he was drafted into the NFL with the Saints, he went to the rookie symposium. And, Lo Neal was a country boy from Lemoore, California, played his college ball at Fresno State. So money was something that he valued a great deal because he didn't have a lot of it growing up. He said he was surprised at how many rookies at the symposium were not paying attention to the details that they were giving out. But he said the league did a great job of giving you information on investing, on insurance, on how to set up your money to pay you in the future in terms of all these different plans and people they had in place to help you. And what Lo told me over the course of time is that if you take advantage of all the different programs that they have set up and the people in place that can help you, then you can really set yourself up for the future. Lo took advantage of all that, and then through the course of time, through investing, was able to have enough money to where he and his dad were able to go out and start buying properties. And now they've got a bunch of rentals, and so he was able to grow his wealth based on the help that the NFL gave him as a rookie.
Sure.
But you got to be willing to take the time and pay attention to be able to get that done. Well, Kendrick Perkins, one of our favorite ESPN personalities, he's got a new company out.
Big perk.
that is offering college athletes upfront cash in exchange for a portion of their name, image, and likeness deals, an arrangement some consumer protection experts and financial advisors say could prey on young athletes. This report is from ESPN. The company Nilly offers athletes upfront payments ranging from $25,000 into the hundreds of thousands, said Perkins and his co-founder, Wall Street veteran Chris Riccardi. In return, Nilly gets the exclusive rights to use or sell the athlete's name, image, and likeness for up to 7 years, and the company and its investors receive between 10% and 50% of the player's NIL earnings during that time period. Well, ESPN went out to talk to multiple finance experts, different law professors, to get their take on the contracts that they had gotten a hold of. One Utah law professor, Chris Peterson, who was previously an advisor for the federal government's Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, said several parts of Nilly's contract reminded him of other financial products that are labeled as investment opportunities but function as loans. Quote, "These are trashy products designed to take advantage of young kids," Peterson said. And that's the real concern right there.
Yeah.
Also in the report, it says a player who accepts money from Nilly is required to fulfill several minimum commitments throughout the life of their deal. In the contract obtained by ESPN, the player was responsible for making at least one social media post across his accounts per month, autographing up to 10 items per year, and making himself available for at least one public appearance per year. The contract also states that the athlete must commit to, quote, best efforts to keep his social media accounts active. The company is not obligated to provide any help to the athlete in finding or fulfilling endorsement deals, according to the contract. So it sounds like a glorified loan shark, if you ask me.
And they can tie you up for 7 years, which is, that's a long time.
In the case of the contract obtained by ESPN, the player could end up giving Nilly the equivalent of a $75,000 fee in exchange for the guarantee of and immediate access to $50,000 up front. See, the reason why this is appealing to high school athletes or young college athletes, a lot of these kids come from poor backgrounds. So they're not just struggling, but their families are struggling. So Nilly can step in, offer them some quick cash, which can help out the family as they take off to school or as they prepare for college. The program on paper looks good, but again, that all comes back to the percentages and the amount of money in fees that these kids are forfeiting as they continue to move forward.
Yeah, and Chad, it almost sounds like it's designed to prey on young people who don't have the kind of financial skills to deal with situations like this. They're going to run up against a lot of kids who say, "You're going to give me 50 grand?" And yeah, sounds great. And you can have money in your pocket for the first time in your life, but you don't understand the consequences of that sometimes.
Ricky Artie also said it's critical to understand that anticipated NIL earnings are highly uncertain and volatile. It may be tempting for one to assume that we're simply calculating money coming in and deciding how much we want to make on it, but that's not the case at all. Investors are taking risk because earnings are far from certain and are in no way guaranteed.
Yeah.
So I guess for an investor into the company, they're like, here, I'll invest 50 grand, 100 grand, because they're hoping to get, 10%, 20%. If you can get that type of return on your money, then it might be a good, move for you with some of your cash as an investor. But I don't know. If Kendrick Perkins is calling me, I'm probably not going to pick up that phone call, Godfather.
Yeah, but if he calls on you in person and knocks on your door, you might be fairly intimidated by the whole situation.
Well, I could be.
He's a big, big guy.
He's a big dude, big, strong guy, and he played that way as well. So we'll see how this continues to play out. But more things like this are going to pop up. And that's why it's important for the schools and the NCAA to provide as much information as possible to protect these youngsters from the vultures out there that want to get a hold of their money.
Young men and young ladies, just get help on these things. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Well, financial freedom or financial literacy is tough. How many kids at 18, 17, 18, 19 years old understand all of those things? Nobody?
I wouldn't have.
I sure didn't, but how many do? No one? It takes time to learn that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's incumbent. This is why it's important, too, that we have some type of centralized body in college sports, right? we've talked about this, where you get a commissioner, you're more organized, and you've got that way you can not only protect the players, but you can also have an enforcement that can enforce the rules that these schools have to abide by. But more importantly, have a centralized body where you can get the people in the right place to be able to make sure these kids are receiving the proper information and education to make sure they protect themselves moving forward. Because as we've talked about, for a lot of these college kids, NIL is going to be their only opportunity because a lot of them won't go to the NFL.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've got a chance to cash in. You don't want to get wrapped up with some type of, unsavory company and give away a bunch of your money. Because you may not have a chance to earn or have that type of earning potential again. You got to capitalize on it while you got it.
I was thinking about it. Kids coming out of high school, the only ones that really know about this are the rich ones anyway. The kids whose family are probably born into money or they have money, their father is rich, their mother is rich, whatever. Wealthy kids kind of understand because they've lived that life. They understand investments. They understand savings, all these things because they've had money in their pocket.
Or
but
they just have
average
parents that understand.
Right.
Yeah. You
People
can turn
to
to dad
ask.
or mom or people to ask.
Or a financial advisor that works with a family, all of that. But the average kid, he doesn't have access to all that information.
No, you might come from a broken family with very little means. How would you know?
Well, even not a broken family, but my mom and dad, my dad was just a working guy, worked for the railroad, Well, I don't know if he would have been able to help. He was pretty good with money, I know that. But I don't even know at that age whether I would have told him or not. It's like, why do I want to let him in on this? He's got enough money. I'll get my $50,000 and have some money in my pocket.
I'll just keep that to myself. No one needs to know.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, there's a lot of kids like that.
Yeah.
They don't want to tell anyone because they don't want them to get a piece of their money.
Well, yeah, and people want to borrow money from you all the time. You know how tough that is when you're a kid.
Yeah. Now, pro athletes get that all the time, too.
Oh,
Family
yeah.
members and friends hitting them up for this or that or whatever.
Long lost relatives.
And the problem is most people want to help when they can, but they can get themselves in trouble by helping too much.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a crazy world out there, Godfather. But this is where the Wild Wild West, everyone complains about the transfer portal and the NIL deals and schools using money as enticement to recruit them. Those are problems. But I'm more concerned about the young kids getting taken advantage of. That's a serious problem because that can devastate people.
We're going to start reading those stories, Chad. You can bank that. We're going to start reading these sad stories.
We'll probably get a 30 for 30 on it.
Yeah. Oh, it's inevitable. It has to be.
The criminals are scheming right now.
Yeah.
Are they not?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, big money, young kids who don't have an understanding. That's a good place for us to go and prey on them.
Yeah.
That's how they see it. All right, so we're going to talk with Justin Myers, host of Rip City Mornings. He'll be at the game this weekend with Oregon and Ohio State. Who's going to win? What's the key matchup? Or who is the guest picker again?
Caitlin. Caitlin.
Yeah, such a big name that you can't even remember it. Such a star that you can't even remember her name. My point is proven. Caitlin Clark. We'll ask Justin if he approves of that decision there. Is it Caitlin Clark?
No, it's not.
That's a basketball player.
Her last name is Clark.
Caitlin Olsen?
Caitlin Olsen. That's it.
See, Godfather trying to tell me how good of a decision it was. Can't even remember her name.
Yeah.
Never heard of her before. Put Phil Knight out there, man. Mr. Nike. And Mr. Oregon. And he freaking single-handedly has transformed the program. You're not going to put him out there as a guest picker? That's disrespectful to Phil.
Yeah, but they're not concerned with that. They're concerned with promoting other Disney ventures.
Okay. All right, Justin Myers is up next. You got the Rip City Driver, Dwight and Chad. Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, in studio for the 5 o'clock hour.
I think going back to the basis of winning, for sure. But, of course, in these atmospheres as well, experience is a huge thing. I think, the turnover battle, third downs, fourth downs, efficiency, and then scoring in the red area. I think when you combine all those three, you can look at it. And usually that's, the main three categories of winning. But, I think just, naturally there's a lot of energy and hype for everyone. But the best, team at focusing and honing in on, their job, usually does a great job in the game as well.
All right, there's Dylan Gabriel on the keys to winning big football games. Oregon and Ohio State, 4:30 kick from Autzen. And joining us right now to discuss, the host of Rip City Mornings and self-proclaimed duck honk, Justin Myers, is back on the show. What's up, my friend?
What is up? I don't even think it's self-proclaimed. I'm beside myself. I don't know what to do. I've read every article I could read. I have watched every YouTube video I could watch. It is just, this is the joys of a big game. I was talking about it this morning on the show. You know how, like, the best part of vacation is, like, driving to the airport? Like, that's the best part of vacation. Like, the best part of a big game is, like, the week of and the anticipation and getting up and watching game day and getting ready for kickoff. And then when the kickoff happens and the game happens, then it's just sheer agony for about 3 hours.
All right, I want to ask you this. I was at the Oregon-Michigan game in 2003. To me, that's the biggest game we've seen at Autzen. Would you agree with that? And then is this by far going to be the biggest matchup that we'll be talking about 20, 30 years from now?
I think so. The only problem is you kind of have to go, like, with what the outcome was, because, you think of Oregon in 2007 had some massive games, one against USC, one against Arizona State, which oddly enough, when you look at the rankings, I think that's probably the biggest game in terms of AP poll rankings, was either Oregon, Arizona State in 2007 or Oregon and Michigan State in 2014. But you have to factor in name recognition. And Chad, you're right. I mean, nobody in the modern era of Oregon football had seen a football factory like Michigan, or a football tradition like Michigan, and those winged helmets. And they were the number 5 team in the country and came into Autzen Stadium. And it was an unbelievable afternoon, and Oregon walks away with the victory. And I still say there's plenty of people that will tell you this is the loudest, second half Oregon, Michigan 03, I think is the loudest Autzen Stadium has ever been. Now that may get eclipsed coming up on Saturday, but yeah, I think that Michigan game was as close to what we are about to see this weekend, but nothing compares. It's number 2 versus number 3. The winner of this game could likely be the number 1 team in the country, depending on what happens in Dallas. It's Ohio State. Plus, we were talking to a guy named Doug Lesmerises, who covers Ohio State football in the Big Ten, and you got to remember, this game was scheduled for 2020. This game was scheduled like 2015. This is like a 10-year anticipation for Ohio State to come to Autzen Stadium that was wiped away by COVID. So you factor all that in, the rankings and everything else, this is gigantic. Nothing compares to this.
Okay, let me ask you this. How much have you been offered for your tickets?
I have been offered no money, Dwight, because I have made it very publicly clear that they are not for sale. So I have been offered zero money for the tickets. Now, that being said, can I say that I haven't went to Ticketmaster or StubHub or SeatGeek and looked in my section to see what tickets are going for?
And
yeah, they're still going for a pretty penny. But I've been offered no money.
How much for tickets in your section right now in the secondary market?
The last I saw was $1,500
a piece.
A piece.
Oh gosh, you're crazy.
You're an idiot. How much did you pay for your season tickets?
Close to that. Yeah, would have paid for the entire season. Yeah.
God, you're talking about giving away a trip for 2 to Maui. I mean, come on now.
Hey, listen, I heard you guys last segment. I mean, I still think I'm better financially than what Kendrick Perkins is trying to do and rip off everybody.
Yeah.
So, at least I bought the tickets to sit in the seats. I'm going to be sitting in the seats for the Ohio State game. And unless Oregon and even if Oregon gets their doors blown up by 40, I don't think I'm going to regret it.
I keep waiting for the company 541 fronted by Justin Myers, where you're looking to give cash loans to college players. I'm against NIL, but now that I have a chance to make some profit off of it, I'm in.
Listen, first off, two things. One, I am a hypocrite, and I told you that, and I will change. I can be bought. Look, I work in radio. You guys
Yeah.
work in media. We can be bought. Have you heard me talking about low T lately? Yeah, I can be bought. The second thing is, Chad, we talked about this. I think 6 years ago, I said this was going to happen. So you start paying these players. Bad actors are going to show up and they're going to start ripping off 19-year-old kids who have no idea what to do with $100,000.
That's true. Better than being ripped off by the NCAA, though.
Oh no, those guys, they were just trying to give kids an education and an opportunity. What are you talking about?
All right, Dwight and I think the key matchup will be the Oregon defensive front against the Ohio State offensive front. What is it for you?
100%. So I think there's two key matchups, and to go a little bit further, it's going to be Chip Kelly versus Tosh Lupoi. Those are the two coordinators, and obviously we're all familiar with Chip Kelly and kind of reading about what he's been doing with Ohio State, and he has brought what we all saw at Oregon, which is creativity in the run game. I know everybody remembers the Chip Kelly era at Oregon for speed. Everybody remembers it for the blur and the no huddle, and it was as fast as anybody has ever ran an offense. But if you go back and look at the plays, no one was more creative in running the ball, in finding ways to get guys in space, running the ball, optioning it, and everything else. And, Tosh Lupoi, he was at Cal back in 2010. He was at Washington. This is a guy that is very familiar with the Chip Kelly offense and Chip Kelly offensive styling. So I think that cat and mouse game between Chip Kelly and Tosh Lupoi and that Oregon defensive front that has been lights out, and obviously an offensive front for Ohio State. That, they probably have 3 dudes that are probably going to end up in the NFL on that offensive line. So yeah, that's a key matchup. The other one is, Jabbar Muhammad was a huge transfer from Washington that Oregon got in the portal this offseason, and haven't really heard an awful lot about him. And it's because no one is throwing his way. Well, Jeremiah Smith is one of the best receivers in the country. I think he's like 18 years old, which is also kind of scary. But Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State, he's one of the best receivers in the country. I got to imagine Tosh Lupoi and Dan Lanning are going to match up Jabbar Muhammad with Jeremiah Smith. That's the other matchup to pay attention to in the game.
Okay. Now, my guess was that just because you're a good old contrarian, you might be the guy that's saying Ohio State's going to win this game.
Well, you'd be wrong. Do I? Because I'm an emotional Oregon homer, and I believe that they could win every game. So while I can be contrarian on many topics, I still think Oregon's going to find a way to win the game. If this game was at the Horseshoe, I don't know. I could probably be talked into it, but I think Oregon at home at Autzen, I think they find a way to win this game. I really do.
And what's your take on what you've seen from them over the last few weeks? The early season struggles, they've gotten better. They're still not clicking on all cylinders on offense. Like, what do you think about where they're at going into this game?
Man, it's been just kind of one thing that has been missing. The problem is it keeps changing every game, right? And hopefully now that they get into this Ohio State week, they can get it all together and get it all fixed because the first week it was the offensive line and Dillon Gabriel getting pressured. And same thing with week 2, getting hit too many times and turnovers. And also trying to figure out how to tackle Ashton Jeanty, which nobody else in college football has been able to figure that one out either. Then, you go into the Oregon State game. They kind of got it figured out, but missed an extra point, and special teams might be a problem. Then you get these last 2 games, and Dillon Gabriel has now thrown 3 red zone interceptions in the last 2 games. And this is a dude that the most interceptions Dillon Gabriel has. I don't know if it's the acoustics. I don't know if it's the way they built it. I can't tell you any of the engineering behind it, but just something about Autzen when it is a big game, when you get that electricity in the building, it's a factor and you can feel it. And it's been, kind of few and far between, but now I think with this game and the anticipation coming in, I think it's going to be off the charts loud.
What do you think about the guest picker selection of Caitlin Olsen?
Yeah. What's your beef? What's your guys' beef with Caitlin Olsen? You never watched Always Sunny?
Dwight doesn't have a beef. I think the selection of Caitlin Olsen is a bad decision, but they should have gone with someone else. the more people know.
Well, I am a fan of Caitlin Olsen. Always Sunny in Philadelphia is a very funny show. Chad, I think you would like it. I think you would. I think you would be a fan of Always Sunny. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've heard a lot of names being thrown out. I know you threw out Phil Knight. He's already done it once. Does he even want to do it anymore? I mean, he's worth like $40 billion. I mean, does he want to get up and go down like to game day and pick like Colorado and Kansas State and get made fun of on the internet if he gets a miss? Like, he's a 40 billionaire.
Yeah, I think he wants to be a part of that. Yes, he's invested more in the program than anybody else. I think he would like to go and be on ESPN and pick games.
Okay. Well, if I'm with you. If Phil Knight ever says, I'm guessing he's their first call every time, and he should be the first call every time. After that, I mean, I don't know who else you pick. I mean, it's
Joey Harrington.
Joey would be good. I'd be down with Joey. But does Joey have a TV show on ABC?
Yeah, that's
No.
the big question.
No,
yes.
Joey's got to get a TV show. I mean, it's celebrity guest picker. I love Joey. He's not a celebrity. I mean, Talking Ducks is a good show. Don't get me wrong, but he's not a celebrity.
You know, I wanted to ask you too. We keep talking about. Everybody wants to talk about the offensive line for Ohio State and the Ducks with their great defensive front. But what about the other side of the ball? Is Oregon going to be able to run on them?
We're going to find out. And I thought last week against Michigan State, that was maybe the best that offensive line is blocked. Michigan State's not very good. Jonathan Smith's got a long road ahead of him, but I thought in playing up against a legit Big Ten conference opponent, albeit a bad Big Ten conference opponent, they kind of were able to move the ball on the ground and the explosion plays. I mean, we were talking about it last week, guys, like the lack of explosion plays that we're used to from Oregon football, even under Lanning these last 2 years, just haven't quite been there on the run game. Well, they got a couple of them. And I think Jordan James, I think he bounced one for 41. He had a couple of nice explosion runs there. So I thought that was good. Being able to run the ball, that's the key. That's the key to everything. This offense, almost every offense in college football, if you can't run the ball and you become one-dimensional, it takes away all the advantages that you have with Dylan Gabriel, with moving him out, using play action, run pass options, all that stuff. And that's as technical a football as I'm going to get. But if you can't run the ball, the rest of the playbook becomes very, very ineffective. So that's a huge key. You're right. I mean, are they going to be able to? I hope so. I really do, but I couldn't tell you.
Dude, how cool is that to see the kids at Vanderbilt walk the goalpost 3 miles down Broadway in Nashville and dump it into the river?
One of my favorite tweets I saw was imagine being a bachelorette party in Nashville down there at like Jason Aldean's bar or at Eric Church's bar with your pink cowboy hats and your white Amazon cowgirl boots, and you're trying to have your own bachelorette party, and here comes 1,500 drunk Vanderbilt students carrying a goalpost down Broadway, dumping it in the river. That must have been a scene. It must have been a scene downtown.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. I've seen, they've gotten really tough at Oregon about those goalposts. There's some pretty burly guys guarding those things. Do you think they'd be able to get one of those goalposts out of there?
All right, so if I have my history right, I believe the last time the goalposts were torn down at Autzen was 1989. Oregon beat UCLA and ended up qualifying for the Poulon Weed Eater Independence Bowl, which was the biggest deal that this 9-year-old Duck fan had ever seen.
I was there.
And I think that was the last time because, Dwayne, I think they had to reschedule the high school state championship games because they were supposed to play at Autzen and they had no goalposts, so they had to reschedule them. The urban legend is that the goalposts that they put in to replace, they said, could not be torn down. Now, I was there in 94 after they beat Arizona, which was the Desert Swarm, which was at the time kind of a bigger win. The Kenny Wheaton's going to score lives on forever, but the next week they beat Arizona. I saw about 15 dudes on top of those goalposts. They could not get them to topple. There's been a couple of other, I think, slight attempts, but you're right. By the time it hits triple zeros, those blue shirts and those windbreakers, boy, they stand guard. They don't care where else you go on the field, but they stand guard on the goalpost. But yeah, the urban legend is they can't be torn down. I think Oregon fans have torn down more goalposts at Reser or Old Parker Stadium in the last 30 years than have actually torn down the ones at Autzen.
Well, there's been some bad accidents in terms of trying to tear those down too.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in when you've got that many people on the field. Those things are heavy. Now, here's the other thing. I want to ask you guys this. Did you see Vanderbilt started auctioning off all their memorabilia?
Mm-hmm.
All right, what are the chances that's real memorabilia? Do we believe that is real, or did they run down to Dick's Sporting Goods and buy a bunch of pylons and buy a bunch of yard markers and just claim that they were the ones that were on the field when they beat Alabama?
From everything I saw, it was real. But what I love is that they were cutting up portions of the goalpost and selling them, which is genius.
Well, again, did somebody, maybe an entrepreneurial student, go down to like Home Depot and get like some 4-inch galvanized pipe and some yellow spray paint and start selling on eBay parts of the goalpost?
Well, it could have been a company fronted by Kendrick Perkins.
Exactly right. Give me all your NIL for 7 years, and here's some memorabilia. It's a goalpost from Vanderbilt. No, it's not a piece of pipe that I got from Home Depot that we painted yellow. But I feel like they were selling all the pylons. Like at that point, you got to like rummage through every closet you got at Vanderbilt, right, to try to find every pylon, just to say, yeah, this is a Vanderbilt pylon. It may have been on the field. Who knows?
They do have smart students down there. They could have taken advantage of that situation.
That's what I was going to say, Justin. We're talking Vanderbilt here now.
Yeah.
There's some integrity in that school. This is not your SEC average school, you know.
Also, go back and if people want to do a little Wikipedia research, go find out how Vanderbilt made his money. He took all the railroads and he took them all by himself. So yeah, there's a lot of, let's just say, opportunistic entrepreneurial spirit at Vanderbilt, going all the way back to its founding.
Well, have fun at the game this weekend. Be safe. No car crashes, my friend, and hopefully no one will ram you.
Uber all day. Also going down tomorrow, guys, playing Eugene Country Club. Got in at Eugene Country Club for a nice little 18 before the game.
Wow.
Who did you hit up to get that done?
I know
Olsen?
some people. Yeah, Caitlin Olsen is gonna and her husband Rob McElhaney, and we're gonna bring in Phil Knight. That's the foursome.
All right, you're the man, dude. Enjoy the game, and we'll talk to you next week.
You guys are the best.
There you go, Justin Myers.
He says that every week. You guys are the best.
He's a one-of-a-kind, Justin Myers.
He certainly is.
All right, we'll come back. After we verbally murdered the Dodgers yesterday, they found a way to bounce back and get a big-time win with the bullpen game. I was stunned.
You were doing that old fan thing where you were real negative, hoping you were putting the old reverse jinx on them.
Boy, Mookie Betts went from ice cold to red hot in a heartbeat. It's nice to have him going. No Freddie Freeman. They still got the job done.
How does a guy hit that same ball to left field leading off the game again? And then how does the left fielder miss it this time?
I know. All right, that sets up a big-time Game 5 in Los Angeles. We'll get a playoff update from the Godfather coming up next, and then Brian Noe in studio for the 5 o'clock hour. All right, 2 games on tap in the playoffs today. Right now, end of 5 in Detroit. The Tigers and Guardians are tied up at 2. Detroit leads that series 2-1. If they win this, they'll move on to the ALCS. And coming up later on at just after 5 on TBS, True TV and Max, the Yankees and Royals Game 4 from Kansas City, New York, has a 2-1 series lead. If they win, the Yankees, they'll move on to the ALCS. So that's what's on tap today. I got to be honest with you, Godfather. I was stunned that the Dodgers were able to come out and get early offense and really put the pressure on the Padres. But more importantly, to have a bullpen game where they completely dominated. I did not see that happening. I did not think it was going to materialize. I thought they were going to get blown up and just run right back out of the playoffs, and yet they found a way to nut up and get the job done and force a Game 5. That was impressive for a bullpen game.
Yeah, the bullpen games can be hard on the offensive team facing it because you just see a pitcher, a different guy every time you come up to bat. And that's the whole idea of it. Really hard to adjust. And, we talked to Jimmy Joyce about that the other day, and he was talking about it's hard to umpire that for the same reason that teams do it, because it's hard to hit that too. So, yeah, I was a little surprised because the Dodger bullpen and their pitching staff is not that deep. It's not that good normally. And to get all those shutout innings from those guys was very shocking to me.
Very shocking.
But, we also saw the Mets the Mets just annihilated the Phillies. That series was a joke. And the Mets were 17.5 games behind the Phillies on June 11th. Okay? And then they just beat them in the playoffs. And by the way, in June, that was just coincidentally the time that the Mariners were 10 games up in their division, and they didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah, and then by the end of the year, the Phillies only had like 6 more wins than the Mets.
Yeah, they really came on in the second half, no question about it.
Well, one thing for certain, you've mentioned this, and I know a lot of people are talking about it, the bye that these division winners get, it proves often to be a death nail because you get out of your rhythm. Guys who are on fire come in and they run into some type of, hitch, and they're giddy up when the postseason gets underway, and we've seen teams struggle with that.
Brian Snitker last year with the Braves, they lost for the second year in a row after having the bye, and he said afterwards, it was kind of ironic. He said, you can't go 5 or 6 days without seeing that velocity, that 95 to 100 miles an hour, and then expect to get right back into it again. It's really hard. And, of course, the Phillies made fun of him. You're just making excuses, blah, blah, blah. Well, the Phillies had their shot at it this year, and they couldn't do it either. It's really difficult. I was going to mention yesterday, Detroit shut out Cleveland again on 5 hits. 3 of those hits by Stephen Kwan, the ex-Oregon State kid. Stephen Kwan also tonight is 1 for 3. In the first inning, he singled, stole second, and scored the Guardians' first run of the game.
Having a tremendous season.
He really is. He's capping it off great. He had back problems and some fatigue problems at the end of the year, but what a great year he's had. He's probably going to win another Gold Glove, too.
Well, I feel better today about my dreams to have the Dodgers and Yankees in the World Series.
You have to, yeah.
How do you think the Dodgers will handle this in Game 5 tomorrow? I'm assuming that Yamamoto will start, and then what is it, all hands on deck at that point?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
How critical is that day off today to be able to go back home and have that day of rest to recoup for an all-important Game 5?
Yeah, it's really important, Chet, because they blew out their whole bullpen in the game yesterday. So to have those guys get a day of rest is perfect. It was the perfect time to do the bullpen game, and they knew that. And so they've got Game 5 at home, and that should be an advantage. Dodger Stadium's going to have to get loud, get a little testy, kind of make it the kind of home field that the Padres have in San Diego.
Well, sometimes all it takes is one hit or one game, and Mookie Betts, I think it was like 0 for his last 22 in the postseason. He got robbed on that home run in Game 2, gets the home run to kick off Game number 3, and I thought when I saw that game, I was like, I wonder if that hit's going to be the one that kind of helps him break out of the slump. And then he comes to watch.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Royals force a Game 5 going back to New York.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. That would be nice, though, just to get another good Game 5 and have the Yankees in one and the Dodgers in the other.
All right, when we come back, Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, in the studio talking some ball here on the Rip City Drive. All right, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad and Godfather. Look what the cat drug in, my friend. Bino! Fox Sports Radio. What's up, B?
Man, how are you guys doing? It's great to see you again.
Dude, it's so great to have you back in. I was so pumped to know that you're going to be around for a while, that you're hanging out in town. So I was like, we got to get Noah back in. You were at a concert last night, or was that the night before?
When was that? A couple of nights ago?
It was some band that did some type of Metallica. They honor Metallica or something.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea who they were.
Well, you know Korn. You know who Korn is.
I've heard of Korn,
Yeah,
yes.
you know who that band is. But yeah, we scored some free tickets, and it's like,
Nice.
You still got connections in this town?
well, she does. You know, you'll
No
say is
kidding.
hanging out here. So her cousins live in Eugene, and it was a whole thing. They had won some tickets, and they invited us, and we're like, sure. And I was like, who's opening for Korn? And they said Gojira. Now, you like the Olympics, right, Dwight?
Yeah.
Like the opening ceremony, they're from France, and they're a pretty heavy band.
Yes, they were. I
And they
was
played
shocked.
some metal during the opening ceremonies. I was like, we have arrived.
I
Never
remember
happens.
I remember that well. I could not believe they put that kind of metal on at the Olympics.
I couldn't either.
But France did a lot of things during the Olympics I couldn't quite believe.
yeah, right, absolutely. But man, to have metal represented, I was like, yeah, that's it. Shacker, I'm sure Shaq Diesel was all over that.
Were you at the Korn concert, Shacker?
Yeah, I was there just for this band, Gojira.
Oh yeah, I love Gojira. I heard they were opening. I'm like, I'm there. Absolutely. You know.
I love it.
How did Korn follow this band?
I mean, they did their thing. The crowd, you get it, right, Shaq? Like, they have the radio hits, and they're a more popular band in this country for sure. So it was fun to see them. Like, they actually have a handful of songs that I like. I like the heavier stuff, but Korn is fine. That was my first concert I ever went to, was in 1996. It was a Megadeth concert, and Korn was one of the 3 opening bands, and no one had heard of them.
Yeah.
Like, they started playing their song Blind at the time, and we're like, who the hell are these guys? And what a dumb name. And they blew up. Props to them. They've been around for almost 30 years now.
And Megadeth's got some good music. So 96, where was that at? Indiana?
It was in Michigan. I can't think of the because we drove over to I cannot remember the place in Michigan, but it was like Fear Factory, Flotsam and Jetsam. It was the old band of Jason Newsted, who was the bassist of Metallica.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, that's random. And then it was Korn and Megadeth. In 96, I cannot name the city, but somewhere just
Don't
right
worry.
across the border in Michigan.
We've already established we don't come to you for geography, so it
Yeah,
doesn't
I
matter.
know.
It doesn't matter. We
Where
come
are
to
you
for
living
ball.
right now? No, I don't know.
I
I'm
did. I
not
asked
sure.
him,
Yeah.
whereabouts in town are you? Like,
Yeah.
dude, I have no idea.
I don't know.
Hey, we had Foo Fighters in town a while back for an outdoor at Providence Park. 30,000 people.
Yeah, I definitely would have seen them. Like Dave Grohl, old Nirvana
They were really
drummer.
good.
He's a
Yeah.
metal guy.
Yeah.
He loves Slayer, and he's a great musician. So
Yeah.
I definitely would have gone to see that.
It was good.
Well, thanks for coming back, man. How much longer are you in town for?
Well, man, you never know with us. We're just vagabonds at this point, you know. But scheduled as of now next Sunday,
Okay.
like the 20th.
All right, good. Well, let's start out with this. Here's Coach Ulbrich, the interim coach for the Jets, talking about his transactions with the offensive staff today.
Regarding the staff, after a lot of time to think about it, and did not make this decision easily by any means, I'm going to make Todd Downing the play caller for the New York Jets going forward. And this is more a byproduct of a different take on things. I'm not saying it's a better or worse take on things by any means, but just a different take on things, a fresh approach. So ultimately, Todd will have the full say on the game plan and ultimately the plays that are called within the game.
How much of a mess are the Jets right now? He went out of his way not to throw Hackett
Right.
under the bus.
Yeah, they're just a grease fire. But the thing that I thought of was I've never been broken up with in that manner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just strictly a football thing.
Yeah.
No one has ever said, I did not make this decision easily. This was not an easy decision. But you're dumped. That's essentially what it
Well, in your
equates
case,
to.
it's a snap decision. It's not a difficult
It's not.
decision.
This is
Yeah.
not hard at all.
Yeah.
This is an easy call. But yeah, always the same song and dance. This was not an easy decision over here. But Hackett is demoted because he sucks.
Yeah, take a listen to these numbers on Hackett. In 2018, this is Hackett as a play caller because with Green Bay, he wasn't calling the plays. That was LaFleur's job. In 2018, fired as the Jags offensive coordinator after 11 games. In 2022, the Broncos, he surrenders play calling duties as head coach after 9 games. Don't forget that Jerry Rosberg was brought in after game number 2 to help oversee things because he was so pathetic. With the Jets, they ranked 31st in total offense last year. And this year with the Jets, play calling duties revoked after 5 games.
You know, I think of the good coaches that just didn't have the roster, didn't have the talent to work with, and what they could have been.
Yeah.
Hackett is the exact opposite of that. He never would have been anything without Rodgers.
Yes.
And think how many opportunities that led to for that guy.
Gosh. Sometimes a coach gets paired up with the right quarterback, and think about what they're able to parlay that in terms of jobs.
Yeah. And he did. He was the head coach of your team for a year.
What a disaster.
Wouldn't you like to ask Aaron Rodgers someday, why are you keep hauling this guy around? Why is he tailgating off you? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I get they're boys, they're buddies, but you would think, to your point, Dwight, that Rodgers would see through what's going on. They had some success in the past, so maybe he just thinks I'm that good and he's my guy and he lets me do what I want to do and whatever his reasoning is. But I would think, to your point, he would think, I need someone better to get the best out of me and us, even if it's not what I want, but that's not what he's signed up for.
Chad and I were talking earlier about it. The thing is, 5 years from now, nobody's going to know who Hackett was. But they're going to know Aaron Rodgers took all these losses, and the end of his career didn't look so hot.
Right, absolutely.
And he's having to wear all this stuff, and that's not very smart on his. And he's a smart guy. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. Where, you would think he would align himself with someone that's more successful, and for whatever reason, he just hasn't. That's not been his preference.
How do you think this went down with Olberg? Did he have to get Woody and Aaron to sign off on demoting Hackett? I think he had to talk to those guys. How do you think that decision came to be?
That was the weird part where it's just like the timeline where Saleh wants to demote Hackett.
Yeah.
So he talks to Woody Johnson, and Woody and Aaron Rodgers talk to each other. And then Saleh's gone.
Yeah.
And then Hackett's demoted anyway. So if you're Saleh, you have to be like, so wait a minute. Did I get fired because I wanted to demote this guy and he got demoted anyway? Then why am I gone? So it.
Do you believe Aaron Rodgers that he had no say in the decision on, Coach Saleh?
I don't believe that. I think this. I think that, did Woody Johnson say to Aaron Rodgers, do you want him to stay or not? Probably not. But he had a part in it, and he has owned that. He's like, if our offense was performing better, it never would have come to this.
That's true.
And that's absolutely true. So I don't think they had to sit down and he said, Aaron, thumbs up or thumbs down like he's a Roman emperor or something like that. But just based on how the offense was not functioning, that absolutely played the ultimate part.
But he has to. I mean, you got a quarterback of the nature of Aaron Rodgers. You got to ask him before you even fire the head coach, don't you?
I think you do have to run it by him, right? Like, I think you have to clue him in as to what's going to happen. If you're a good organization, you do.
Well, they're not.
Right, so who knows with them? But I would think, like, basketball, take any star player. It's not the same thing as the NBA, but Aaron Rodgers is on, like, a Giannis level.
Sure.
You wouldn't just say, oh, by the way, Giannis, we fired Adrian Griffin. Just newsflash for like you would have to clue him in beforehand.
Well, it's much more likely Giannis said fire Adrian Griffin.
Right, like Aaron Rodgers. Let's put it this way: he didn't throw himself in front of the speeding train, where he's like, okay, if that's what you're gonna do, okay, right? I think it probably went down something like that.
But Brian, here's what's crazy: they host the Bills on Monday night, and if they win that game, they're tied for first in the division.
I know it. Right.
That crazy?
It is crazy. And, man, if I'm Robert Saleh, I'm thinking defense is what I do. The defense has been fine.
Yeah.
It's the offense that's been a wreck, and he was trying to change that up by demoting Hackett, and now he's gone. If you're Robert Saleh, this cannot sit well with you at all.
No, it cannot. So, and I got to give you credit on the Bills. You were on the show a couple of weeks ago, and Dwight asked you about the Bills because they were playing good football, and you're like, hey, they're playing well, but what have they done? They haven't beaten anyone. They haven't played anyone. And look at the last 2 games. They play at Baltimore. They get destroyed. And then they put up an all-time awful performance against the Texans last week where Allen didn't play well. Probably shouldn't have gone back into the game after he was concussed. And then the head coach just pulling some really dumb decision-making down the stretch.
Yeah, it's Josh Allen he's a great quarterback. When he goes 9 for 30 against the Texans, they're fine defensively, but they're not all world. That's just like, what's this wide receiving core? They didn't have Khalil Shakir. What do they have? like honestly, what do they have against better defenses as far as wide receivers go? And you're playing a Jets defense. They shut down the Vikings. That's Justin Jefferson out there. The Vikings didn't do much of anything. Aaron Jones went down. They had a hard time moving the ball. Sam Darnold didn't look good at all. And now all of a sudden the Bills and their, malfunctioning offense, you're supposed to get right on the road in primetime against that defense. That's not a great scenario for the Bills.
But I got to ask you this. You're a Dolphins guy. Tua goes down, and there are 5 people out there that run him to the tent, go back in the locker room, you're done for a month, okay? Josh Allen goes down, and a play later, he's right back out on the field, and everybody could see his head banging off the ground.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Their whole concussion protocol makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And we all know the difference with Tua is you've seen it numerous times, right? But I hear you. Trust me, I hear you. It's a different deal with Tua because you've seen, what do they call it, the fencing posture with his hands. That's so
terrible.
Scary, man. But you've seen that with Tua a handful of times. So when he gets concussed, it's a different deal. Coincidentally, against the Bills, by the way, this latest one. And, but I hear you, right? It shouldn't be, Tua should walk away. You hear a lot of current players, current coaches. Antonio Pierce had said that, the Raiders head coach. Hey, he should think about the quality of his life. It's not worth it. Walk away. And then Josh Allen gets concussed, and it's a shoulder shrug. It's weird how inconsistent it is.
Yeah.
Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio in studio for the hour. Coming up in a couple of minutes, 49ers up in Seattle taking on the Seahawks. San Francisco at 2-3. They're a 4-point favorite. What do you think about this game?
I think that the Niners are in a great spot to buy low on them. I bet on them this week to win the division because it's like,
wow,
they're so talented, man. Who do you believe in outside? The Rams are a grease fire. Arizona, I don't believe in them. The Seahawks, crazier things have happened. Could they win the division? Sure, but I wouldn't bet on it to happen. I think the Niners are easily the most talented team, so it's never easy in prime time on the road like that, but I see them winning the game tonight, and I see them ultimately winning the division.
I would agree with that because of talent and based on the other teams. Like, I don't believe in Arizona. Definitely don't believe in the Rams. They're beat up with injuries, and the Seahawks they're okay.
By the way, how crazy is it that Jared Goff has more touchdown catches than Brandon Ayuk? He's got one touchdown. Jared Goff, he's a quarterback. How is our guy Ayuk not in the end zone yet? He's got to get there tonight, right?
I would have thought training camp might be kind of important for some guys.
That's true. Yeah, can be helpful.
That's a bad look after you sign a fat deal that he still wasn't really happy with, right?
Right. Yeah. Still kind of like, okay, all right. I'll sign it.
Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio in studio. And by the way, your lady's classing it up in here. It hasn't smelled this good in the studio in like 5 decades. It's amazing.
It's really because of me. Like, you just think it's her, but I just showered. That's why I was.
Nice work, Noe.
That's why I was pulling in here at 60 miles per hour.
I got the text. I'm coming in hot. He wasn't lying.
Story of my life, man. I don't know why allowing time is just not something I do.
All right, more with Bino when we come back on the Rip City Drive. All right, Brian No, Fox Sports Radio, hanging out with us in studio. Well, you bring up a good point in regards to wagering. Vanderbilt pulled off the all-time stunner last week by beating Alabama, something that never happens, but it happened. And I've never seen a head coach like Kalen DeBoer going from, he's the one, and in 1 week they all want to run out of town for losing to Vandy. But with kids being kids, I would bet my bottom dollar on Kentucky hammering Vandy this week.
I know it. That's the thing. It's so hard for these college kids to crank it back up again the next week.
Yeah.
Because really, how much of this week for Vanderbilt has been about the next opponent, Kentucky?
Not at all.
Compared to what just happened with an all-time win against Alabama. I'm seeing the quarterback. He's on ESPN shows,
Dan
and Johnny
Patrick.
Manziel
Yep.
jumps in. and
Yeah.
That's all about the previous week. It's not about the next week.
It's crazy, man. Very hard to predict week to week. And I wouldn't want to be a coach. I wouldn't want to be a coach for Vandy this week, trying to get those guys to refocus for a tough game at Kentucky. No
Man,
thanks.
that's the thing is these coaches have to feel it in college. Kalen DeBoer, after they beat Georgia, unbelievable game. He set mouse traps up around the facility. Talking about the Vanderbilt game. Didn't do any good.
No.
Didn't do any good whatsoever. But as a coach, you have to feel that the whole week of like, they're not on point. We're not focused. We're not right.
And he probably knew it.
And you can't do anything about it. That's got to be so frustrating.
You're right. He probably knew when they got ready to kick off on Saturday that his team was not where they needed to be.
He had to have known. Like, maybe he didn't know to the degree that they were going to lose outright, but he had to know, like, we are not where we need to be mentally. and they lost. That was crazy.
Well, you make a great point with the NFL. Week to week right now, it's so hard to project who's going to win, who's going to beat who. Like, we're seeing everything upside down right now. The 49ers are at 2-3. The Commanders are at 4-1. The Broncos somehow have won 3 straight with limited offense. Like, I don't know how to make sense of any of it.
Yeah, that's the thing is, especially in the NFL with the point spread, I can give you a good argument on both sides of every game. Like, that's life in picking games in the NFL. Like in college, there are a lot of games you could give a good argument with the point spread, which is the right side. But it's not as common as the NFL. You can make a great argument either way in almost every game with the point spread.
So how do you bet the NFL if you feel that way on those games?
That's where you got to be smart. You got to know you don't need to have action on all these games.
Right.
Like, just know.
I hear that all the time. People want to bet every game.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like I'll listen to some podcasts and there'll be these betting guys where it's like, yeah, maybe a slight lean here, but no bet. No bet. No real advantage in this game. And that's the trick of it is, you know this, like gambling, Chad certainly knows this. You can talk yourself into anything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's problematic,
Right?
too.
Like you get this feeling of, you know what? Seahawks plus 3.5. And then whatever, you just start like that and you start talking yourself into it more and more. The Niners, they didn't score in the second half against Arizona. And you just start talking yourself into it more and more. When, if you're honest with yourself, initially you might have been like, yeah, it's a tough call. It's pretty much a coin flip game, you know.
So do you get a feeling? Is it a feeling? How do you make that decision?
I think you look for spots more often than not. I think that's the best way to go about it, where you're thinking, okay, where value, you always hear that. Where can I get value? Let's take Monday night. The Jets, we just saw them lose again. They just fired Robert Saleh. All you're going to hear all week is about what the Jets aren't doing right, how big of a grease fire they are, yada, yada, yada. But they're at home getting points with a real defense against the Bills offense that is not right. I think that's a great spot to take the Jets. And we'll see if that's correct or not. But that's the whole thing is you're looking for value and you're looking to probably swim the other way than the current. That's often the way it goes.
Brian No, Fox Sports Radio in studio. Who would have thought maybe 5 weeks ago that we'd be talking about the Commanders and the Ravens as a big game? But Washington now 4-1 playing good football, and the Ravens have found a spark after a slow start at 0-2. It's now a big game.
Yeah. That's what's crazy, man, is in Washington, they're a great example of just riding the hot hand and riding the hot team, you know? Because, you know, we've talked about it. NFL is week to week. You might look amazing one week and you look freaking terrible the next week.
Yep.
But Washington, they've looked fantastic for 3 weeks in a row. Like, they had the stat going into last week's game, they had more scoring drives than incompletions on the season. And they still might, based on last week's game. They didn't. Jaden Daniels was fantastic again. They had a bunch of scoring drives against Cleveland. But that's the thing is, that's where, and you know this, Chad, right? Like, that's where you start doing mental tennis with yourself as to which side you're going to pick. Where it's like, okay, Washington heading in against Cleveland, they've got all the momentum. We just saw them against Cincinnati. Jaden Daniels has been amazing. He's putting up numbers galore. All right, the public's going to be on Washington. Sharp sides Cleveland. Yeah, that did not work out well at all. Like, Jaden Daniels has just been fantastic.
I was curious about this thing that's happening with the Big Ten. The teams traveling cross country are losing like crazy.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that? Do you trust that enough to bet that? Like Ohio State, they're coming. It's like a 5-hour flight or something.
Yeah.
They're not used to that.
Yeah, I'd keep it in mind, but I wouldn't just blindly fire on that. I would use that as one of the things.
It's a factor.
Yeah. It certainly have to factor it in there, but I wouldn't just fire off a bet just because of that. I'd consider it, but I wouldn't just say, this is why. Like, this is the 100% of my reasoning. It would be a much smaller percentage than that.
What's your feel in that game? Oregon hosting Ohio State, a matchup of top 3 teams. First time that's ever happened at Autzen, and right now Ohio State laying about 3.5, depending on which book you look at.
Yeah, man, we were talking about it off the air, and Oregon has pretty much every game outside of the game against the Beavs, where they put up a big offensive number.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everything else is just a shoulder shrug. You're like, when is this team going to break out, man? Like, they're sleepwalking against UCLA most of the game. They're winning by 31 against Michigan State. And you're like, okay, all right. And then it's like Michigan State fights back and covers, if you're into that thing.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I haven't walked away feeling like, okay, Oregon, they're finally starting to click. They're finally starting to get it. And so I don't like that feeling heading into a game against a really, really talented Ohio State team. Hey, listen, getting points at home, that could absolutely be the right side. But I just don't feel like they've gotten into a groove yet. I just haven't seen it this season.
I'm with you, Brian. I look at them and say, folks around here think it's pretty. They're 5-0, and they've beaten this guy, and they look pretty good, and they're showing. I'm seeing mistakes. I'm seeing things that make me believe they're going to screw it up somehow.
Yeah.
And I don't see Ohio State doing that because they're not playing Michigan, number one, and they screw up against Michigan. But they're pretty good anytime they play anybody else. And I also think I like Chip Kelly. I think he's a good OC. And I think they're going to run up and down the field on him, I think.
Yeah. They might. Their running game, they got a great 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Their quarterback isn't that athletic.
Mm-hmm.
So if Oregon can put a lot of pressure on him, they might have some success that way. I'm just waiting for Dylan Gabriel to break out. And that's the thing is there are times where I'm like, oh, that was a great decision. That was a great throw. Certainly saw a lot of him throughout the years at Oklahoma and all that. But there are times where he just got the UCLA game. He'll have a wide open receiver, underthrow the guy. The next thing you know, it's a pick six, and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
How does that happen? So he's got to have a much cleaner game for the Ducks to have a chance to win the game.
You know what's crazy, too, with this college football landscape? Dwight and I have been talking about this, but the 4 byes in the playoff go to the highest-ranked 4 conference winners. We know that the Big Ten and the SEC, and more than likely the ACC with Clemson or Miami, will get 3 of those teams in. But with the Big 12, kind of cannibalizing itself, you could have Boise State or Army or Navy entering in, getting a bye in the playoff as one of the 4 highest-ranked conference champs. That's wild.
Crazy. Yeah, that's wild, but it could work out like that. I wish we had home games. They should do it just like the NFL. It should be the Super Bowl. Well, the College Football National Championship is at a neutral site, just like the Super Bowl is. I'd have every other game at home stadiums. Like, I don't think the bowl system helps college football right now. That would help the regular season. The importance would be that much more meaningful. Like, you can have home field throughout the playoff in college football if you finished unscathed, like that's going to matter toward the end of the regular season. I wish they would do that. It's cool that they have the first round at home stadiums. I wish they had every round except the championship at home stadium.
When we get a look at a home site in college hosting a playoff game,
it's going to be
it's going to be so
amazing.
great that I think they're going to have to relook at how they're doing that.
Yeah. And listen, man, I like the tradition of anything until it starts working against you. I just don't get, hey, we're going to have the Rose Bowl as the semifinal site. Why? We're going to have this is the Fiesta Bowl. Why? I'd rather that game is in Tuscaloosa with everybody going freaking crazy. That's a way better atmosphere than a neutral site.
Can you imagine, like, Alabama, we were talking about this too, potentially playing a road game at Oregon in a college football playoff?
Yeah. Like, we're fired up for this. This is great. This is a great matchup in the regular season. Imagine if there are playoff stakes. Imagine if that's a semifinal game to go to the championship. It'd be amazing.
The atmosphere would be off the charts.
Yes.
And then you create a new tradition by featuring all the different elements that these different college towns brings in terms of their own history and tradition and their different game day, rituals they go through. I think that's awesome.
Right. And that's the thing with the NFL. It's more meaningful when you win those games on the road in the playoffs. When Mahomes and the Chiefs went to Baltimore for the AFC title game, when you win on the road like that, it's iconic type stuff. Like you're the drive on the road against the Browns. Like
Legendary.
Imagine if that's a neutral site. It's just not the same.
No, because doing it on the road in that environment when dog bones are raining down on top of you, it means something.
Yes, absolutely. And the elements, right? Maybe you're a warm weather team. The Dolphins played at Kansas City. Right? If you're able to go in there and win that game, that's huge.
Yes.
And that what makes the regular season mean more. That's why if you're the Dolphins, you got to beat the Bills in Week 18. You get a home game. You don't have to go to KC and frigid conditions.
That was on Miami. They blew it.
Yeah, they did. But that's what I want to see in college. I would say get rid of the bowl system for the playoff. I don't think it helps at all.
All right, Brad No, Fox Sports Radio is in studio right now. A couple other NFL games coming up this weekend. What about the Lions at the Cowboys?
It's a great matchup, and I don't know how the Cowboys are going to prevent a lot of yards and a lot of points. Just think about that. The Cowboys gave up, 38 to the Ravens at home? They gave up, I think, 44 to the Saints at home. And that was with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence on the field. Now they don't have either of those guys. And you're going up against the Lions offense that, look, Jared Goff was 18 for 18. Throwing 18 passes in a game is not a lot at all in the NFL. They just ran the rock. Like, I don't know how the Cowboys are going to slow down that Lions offense. And I think the Cowboys might have some success against the Lions defense, but, man, that seems to be a shootout. I just don't see how Dallas slows them down enough.
And the Lions have great balance between the run and the pass. And they use play action so well. And I got to give props to Jared Goff because he's been great with the Lions.
Yeah.
They look good.
Yeah.
That transition from Dan Quinn to Mike Zimmer has been very difficult for them.
It has been. It really, you have to wonder if Dan Quinn were still there, what the defense would look like.
It'd probably look better.
Yeah. And it would help if they had other main guys too. but when they had their main guys, they still were bad.
And you're a big fan of what Quinn's doing right now in Washington, aren't you?
Oh, gosh. I think he's always been really good. And players really seem to like him, which they don't always like defensive coordinators, I think.
Yeah.
Because they're usually the tougher guys. The offensive guys, they're the smart guys, and they know how to handle people and everything. All the defensive coordinators do is scream at guys.
Yeah.
And if they still like you after all that, you must be a pretty good guy.
Yeah, I think Dan Quinn he's typically been able to, have good relationships with his guys. And I think he never lost being a former player. He has that mentality. He knows what it's like. And I think he's always been aware of that. I think that's been a big strength of his to connect with guys because he knows what they're going through. And he just earns their respect. It's a lot like Harbaugh, a lot like Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, Chad and I are not big fans of defensive coordinators becoming head coaches. We like the offensive guys getting that job.
Yeah.
I think it's especially for young quarterbacks. Like, I think Jaden Daniels, because he's got Kingsbury, he's in a good spot, even though his head coach is defensive.
Yeah.
I think Bo Nix being with Sean Payton, I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. But, what I see in Chicago, with Eberflus, concerning when you're working with a young guy like Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think the Eberflus thing is weird because he seems like more of a lame duck guy. And it's like, that's kind of weird. I get it. Like, if you have the defensive coordinator and that's the head coach, right? And you have the sharp offensive coordinator, he's probably going to get a head coaching job elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I get that. But, I mean, hey, look at a few guys. Look at what C.J. Stroud is doing with D'Amico Ryans, defensive guy.
It's proven to be a great marriage.
Look at Jaden Daniels with Dan Quinn. That's worked out fine so far. You can go back, look at Tom Brady with Belichick. You know, like it has worked. So I think sometimes we might take that a little bit too far.
Yeah.
But there is something to that because you don't want to keep a revolving door with the offensive coordinator going somewhere else and getting a head gig.
Well, and to Belichick's credit or Dan Quinn, like if you're a defensive guy, that with McDaniels, he always let McDaniels you handle the offense. Like that's
Right.
your side of the ball. You do you and work with Brady.
Right.
And I think that's important. You got to empower your guys and trust them to get the job done.
And that's the thing is, and he was there for a lot of those years, right? It wasn't
ton.
like McDaniels was there. Brady wins a Super Bowl. He's gone. He's a head coach for the next 15 years. It wasn't like that. McDaniels was there a lot of those years.
And it's hard to work with a great like Brady because he's going to demand everything from you. But
Yeah.
he was able to stick it out, and they found the common ground.
By the way, what do you think Tom Brady would have done if he had a Nathaniel Hackett like offensive coordinator? You know?
He would have yelled at him on the sideline and then booted him out.
Exactly. Like, why? I
That-
don't know. It just shows you Aaron Rodgers is wired differently.
But
man.
that's my frustration because I don't want to believe that Aaron Rodgers would prefer to have autonomy and control more than working with someone that can help him win games. But it feels like he would rather have power and control.
It really does.
But that's not right.
It isn't, but it seems like that's what's happening, right? Like, how else do you explain it?
I don't want to live in that world because to me, like all the great quarterbacks I grew up with, yeah, they were demanding and they wanted perfection, but they were willing to be coached hard, right?
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. Remember Tom Brady with Bill O'Brien?
Yes.
And they had their back and forth and
They got into some flat out shouting matches.
right, absolutely. But I think the last thing Brady would want is a pushover that just lets him get his way. And he can be honest with himself and saying, hey, even though I'm getting my way, I'm not getting better. I think that would
That's
drive
the
him
key.
crazier.
Even Peyton Manning at the end of his career, when Gary Kubiak came in, those two butted heads on how they thought the offense should be run. Kubiak saw that he was older and wanted him to run the football more. So they came to a common ground in terms of what formations they'd run and how they would do the offense, and they made it work, and they won a championship. That's because Peyton was willing to lower his ego just a touch to get things done.
Yeah. Sometimes requires that.
But
I don't know if Rodgers has been great in the lowering the ego department.
That's not his strength.
Not really.
Because LaFleur has turned out to be a brilliant coach. Look what he's done with Jordan.
Yeah. He's had a lot of success. Look at what he did with Malik Willis. You're like, Malik actually looks pretty good.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Gambling Chad would have been all over Tennessee in that game when Green Bay traveled there a couple weeks ago, and they won.
Oh, man. Do you ever miss it from time to time?
No. Not when I see Jonathan Smith kicking a field goal inside of a minute to cover the spread
That's right.
in a meaningless spot.
Just when you're thinking, oh, that's right. That's why I don't miss a second of it.
Why'd you kick the field goal? Do you have money on your own team, you moron? That field goal was stupid.
We were in Vegas. No, where were we? No, we were in Washington, D.C., and it was fight night. Canelo was fighting.
Yeah.
This is within the last month or so. And it was the big UFC night. So
Yeah.
we went there, and there were a couple of college football games going on. Fresno State, I think they're playing New Mexico State. I took New Mexico State late just to put points on the board. They're
Yeah.
losing 48-0. All right? They're in field goal range. I'm like, kick it. Just avoid the shutout. They're like, you know what? We're going for it on 4th and 7 or whatever it was. Didn't get it. Lost the bet. Why can't they be like Jonathan Smith, huh?
And most head coaches would kick the field goal there so they could say we didn't get shut out.
Yeah.
You got punked.
I did. That was terrible.
All right, more with Bino, Fox Sports Radio when we come back here on the Rip City Drive.
so frustrating, but the professionals would not lose their mind like that. They
All right, Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio. It's cool to hear that you had a chance to meet up with our former producer, Eric Ringering.
Yeah. Got to see Eric yesterday. We went to some taco place, and I just ordered a Pepsi. That was it. I had eaten beforehand, and they're grabbing food, and I'm like, I'm just going to hang out, eat some chips. By the way, I'm sure you're all aware of this, but the 34-year anniversary, I think it was that long ago, of that album right there, Seasons in the Abyss by Slayer. Like, it just turned 34 like a day or two
Wow.
ago.
Did you know that, Shacker?
No, I didn't.
I didn't even send him a card or anything.
I got to
missed
get on
it.
it, Dwight.
I wasn't listening to that album
Yeah.
until 91. So the album's only 33 years in my heart.
Yeah, right. How can that be, Chad? 1990 was 34 freaking years ago. How is that even possible?
Well, I think what it was it Appetite for Destruction, where they said it was like the 35-year anniversary or something. Like, gosh dang, I'm old.
Yeah, that's
My
wild.
first concert, you mentioned yours was 96. Mine was 92 at the Coliseum here in town. It was Def Leppard. That was my
Really?
first one, yeah.
It just popped into my head. Kalamazoo. That's where it was. Kalamazoo,
Kalamazoo.
Michigan. So where was yours at?
Here in town,
Here
the
in town?
Coliseum, yeah.
Oh,
Because
wow,
my
yeah.
mom was, she was resistant for young Chad to go to concerts. So finally, when I became a senior, I was able to go to my first show. So, and I saw my first live event. I'm like, okay, I need a lot more of that in my life.
Do you remember who they were with?
There was a solo. There
Oh,
was
really? Just
no
them?
opening act. Yeah,
Did you love it? Were
it
they
was
good?
awesome. Yeah, they were great. I just saw them on Labor Day. I went to Moda Center. They played with Journey. Journey opened, and then Def Leppard came out. And I guess what impressed me was just how good they sounded. 30 plus years
Yeah, sure.
forward. They still sound good.
Do they still have the drummer?
Yeah, one arm
Still
drummer.
there?
And I was watching
That's
him.
awesome.
They got the stage set up. It's pretty cool where he's in an elevated spot.
Yeah.
And the rest of the guys are down below, so that way you can really see him working. I love drummers, so I was watching him work with his feet and the way he does everything. It's pretty impressive.
I think that's one of the most awesome stories in music history.
He
where
reinvented himself to be a part of the band.
he got into this bad car accident, lost his arm,
Nearly died.
and the band was like, "You're our guy, man." And he figured it out, and they kept going on. That's awesome.
Yeah, because it's not easy to you have to retrain your body to
Yeah.
use your feet to be able to do all the different things you need to do.
Absolutely.
But he was still jamming out with one arm. It's amazing.
He's the Jim Abbott of rock.
Yes.
You know, remember Jim Abbott? Of
Yeah.
course.
Travis and I interviewed him. He went to the game in New York with his dad where he threw the no-hitter.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was another great story, man, to throw a no-hitter like that. And really, like, to work his mitt with pitching and fielding.
Yeah.
It was amazing what he was able to do.
It was great. Now, you mentioned having a Pepsi at the taco restaurant with Eric. Has your lovely lady adjusted to your 6-year-old eating habits and tastes?
Yeah, she has. And she's expanded.
Your
my-
horizons?
Yeah, my menu. a
Good.
bit.
Thank
So
God.
she's eating lousy food too. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
She at one point when we first got together, I would see every Taco Bell and go, "See," and she'd go, "No," and she's actually warmed up to Taco Bell a little bit.
okay.
You know? Yeah.
Because what I love about you is like you reminded me like every day at work when I was working with you daily. Like you might as well have had like one of the old school like metal lunch boxes where you pull out like the snack pack and the fruit roll up. And you got your little bag of like Fritos, Mountain
oh, yeah.
Dew,
Oh yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Eric asked me yesterday. He was like, "Do you still eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day?" And I'm like, I don't. It's rare I have one
Kick
now.
the
Still
habit?
love them. Still love PB&J, Dwight, but I've gotten
Okay.
out of the habit.
Huh.
Whoever came up with that combination is a genius. Though.
Just phenomenal. What a combination right there.
But you're a Pepsi guy too, right?
I love Pepsi. Mountain Dew is at the top of my chart right there.
That's
but-
good energy for radio too, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Oh, yeah. I'm good with pretty much anything that's not diet. That's the one thing I'm not picky about.
Really?
Is just soda. Just give me anything that's not diet, and I'm probably fine.
See, we don't go for Pepsi at all. No Pepsi products.
I hate going to
It's
a
gotta be
stadium when
Coke.
they're only doing Pepsi products. It's like, what's
Really?
going on here?
I
Yeah.
get calls from Chad, Yankee Stadium. They're serving Pepsi. What kind of a joint is this?
I was mad.
It's in Yankee Stadium.
They're too good of a franchise to offer up Pepsi products.
I didn't know you were anti-Pepsi like that.
I am. It sucks.
We both are.
Yeah.
Wow, really? I love
Yeah.
them both.
I think
I'm
what
totally
it is
fine.
that if you're a Diet Coke or a Diet Pepsi drinker, you don't like the crossover because they're two totally different types of beverages. That's
wow.
all.
By the way, I went to the Coke factory in Atlanta one
sweet.
time.
Have you been to that Godfather?
Never have. No.
How cool is that?
It was great. It was awesome.
Free samples?
Yes, you could. They have like these huge, you know, like a vending machine, right?
Yeah.
Well, not a vending, but whatever you call it. What do you call it with the? And
Like
you just go-
fountain. Like it's a soda fountain.
They just have soda fountains all over the place, and they have them by country, so you can go and get. Hey, I want to sample what's going on in the Middle East. That's
Yeah.
probably a bad example, but or wherever. Like here's Europe. Here are the most popular sodas, and you could do that. It was really cool.
Well, thanks for coming by, man. It's so good to see you again in person.
Yeah, man. Always great to hang with you guys.
All right. Big thanks to Michael Shacker, Justin Myers. We will talk to you tomorrow. Rip City Drive.